Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 299 of the Constantly Calibrating podcast, which is terrifying, that number right now, in all honesty.
We stuck in this long, man.
Why? Why were these choices made? Who did this? Who made us make these choices? But in all seriousness, as always, I am your host, Josh Silverman, joined by my co-host, Justin Stanley. Joining us this week, we have the host of the Spawn on Me podcast, and honestly, one of the best people I know, Kahlief Adams.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to rock with you. It's like I just saw you a minute ago.
What's really funny about that is somebody straight up asked me, it's like, did you and Kahlief plan this part 1, part 2 thing? It's like, no, I've been trying to get Kahlief on a podcast, and we just don't usually do weekend shows. And
no, you should have said it. You should have said yes. You should have said yes.
I look, in the actual post, I'm going to claim it's a real thing, but I'm going to be honest in the actual episode. Let's just no, but it was just one of those things. Like, it just like we found the time that worked because straight up, I needed to make sure we're doing episode 300 this coming week. I needed to make sure we had 299 episodes. I had said to Kahlief, I'm like, hey, this weekend, can we make it work? He did. And then I made a post that was like, hey, I want to be on more podcasts. And he's like, I got an opening. So it's literally the most perfect, like, kismet kind of thing.
I love it.
This is why we do 1099.
Nathan is saying your audio's a little low, Kahlief, so I'm just going to bump. Can you bump up on your side? Is that possible?
I should be able to.
If not, I'll do it on my side.
Yeah. Try it on your side only because I don't want to blow out.
Let's not mess with, yeah. All right.
I don't want to blow out the recording side of it.
Good point. All right, can you say something, Kahlief?
Hello. Test. How do I sound in the chat?
Sounds better to me, so I hadn't even noticed. All right, I bumped you up another 10%. We'll see how it sounds overall. It'll sound great in the actual edited episodes.
Yeah. It'll sound fine.
So you know. But yeah, so anyways, I've been wanting you on the show for a long time because like you're one of those people like I always talk about in the game industry. It's like, I know of Kahlief. I've never talked to Kahlief, but he seems like a lovely guy and he does a really good show. And yeah, and thankfully we've kind of become like, friends over the last year, and now finally get to do this whole thing. So for those who know us but do not know you, who are you? And why are you here?
I am Kahlief Adams. I am the person who runs the Spawn on Me podcast. A podcast. I try to talk about us in terms of saying we are the premier podcast speaking about issues surrounding people of color in the gaming industry and spotlighting those folks. We've been doing that show for about 6 years now. And yeah, I've been a little bit of everywhere. I've done some hosting stuff for Xbox, IGN. My origin story is that I was an IT dude who was really sad about my life and decided to make a blog about video games because I've been playing them since I was 3.
Sorry, we just related.
Yeah, I think you and Justin just became like life mates there. It
was like we just hugged through the internet just right there.
I know that pain.
And that kind of spawned the beginning of what we do or what I do on the internet. So yeah, you've seen me in a whole bunch of different places, in a whole bunch of different ways and beings and stuff. So yeah, that's the reason I'm here. Yeah.
I think, yeah, you pop up just about everywhere, kind of one of those people who it's just like, and it's just like, Kahlief's doing that. Oh, Kahlief is doing this. Oh, okay. And it always makes me really happy just to see you in these in these new environments, as it were. What do you think? I mean, you could say the podcast itself. What do you think is the best thing to come out of this podcast journey for you?
Ooh, man.
I know it's a loaded question there, but
oh man, there's so many different things that I could answer on that. I got a job out of podcasting, which is a thing I did not think that would wind up being like an actual industry job.
It's amazing when like that kind of stuff sort of falls in line.
It's and this isn't one of those like Kojima toot my own horn moments. But it is one of those things where we've been grinding really hard for a really long time to try to get a not easy topic out into the world. So it's really not one of those things that I expected to happen, but it definitely does showcase and share, like, if you push, if you have an idea that you feel is strong and you can feel like you're able to get that across to people in good ways, and you give yourself a standard to which to do your content by, and you can absolutely like kind of flourish in a space where, you know, the industry will often tell you no. And it helps to feel like you can still knock down a door and get a thing done. So it's like the job, of course, is fantastic that I've been able to do that. The charity stuff that we've been able to do over the past 5 years with Spawn for Good has been really fantastic. I think we're on the precipice of trying to get some really cool things done in that respect. And being able to solidify myself in an industry that doesn't, again, like, have a lot of people who are out front, in front of camera, doing that kind of work. It feels really cool to be able to say that, like, I've made at least a small claim and stamped a small spot for myself in this huge and wonderful industry.
I mean, I know that's definitely a wonderful thing. I think that is the best answer I've actually gotten to that question, that kind of style of question. Just, I mean, just the ability to do what you've done, again, like the charity work and the way you've grown and helped uplift other people. Like, one of the things I've always prided myself on, we talked about this on your show a little bit, is I like, my goal essentially with what I do at this point is to help uplift other people and make other voices known, and to just try to make a positive influence. And I think, you know, from what you do, I mean, that's literally kind of a huge basis of what you do. So it seems like it's at the root of it all. So I'm glad to see that that's continued to work out.
Thank you. I mean, it's so interesting and so fitting, right? It's like, I am constantly calibrating my ability to figure out ways to continue to be positive. I will fully admit, is as a person who's doing this work, that even before this was a thing, I was not a very super positive person. I was very, very cynical and very, very pessimistic about many, many things. And I feel like the show has given me a lot of purpose in some ways to be able to kind of look at things and be more critical, but also being more thoughtful and caring about not just the space that we live in and the world in general, but especially the people and towards the people who make the things that I enjoy on a consistent and constant basis. So it's like being able to talk to folks about, you know, why they got into the industry, or, you know, I get often people telling me that they felt like the content that we did, or at least me just being the way I am on social media, has helped them to look at things in a more positive way. Like, that's a huge thing for someone who is a introvert, who is trying to figure out how to maneuver in online, in public spaces in a real way. So it's been a blessing to be able to kind of to see that some of those things are working.
Well, you're you know, in a forward-facing medium, a very heavily forward-facing medium as an introvert. It's incredibly taxing, kind of to be in that. But one thing, you know, you made a comment how really at the start of this all, you were a more negative mindset person, and now you've worked to have this positivity and to try to bring positivity to things. And it's something I always find fascinating, with myself as well. And Justin and I have talked about this, and I've talked to a lot of people. The most positive people I come across always have this origin story. It's like, yeah, actually, I was an asshole, or I was a negative person, or I just kind of wanted to sit in my room and watch the world burn around me, like, at various like levels of things. And those are all the people who are just like, now, just like, yeah, no, I want everyone to be happy, and I want people to like be uplifted and do things. And it's like, I'm maybe a little snarky about things, but in general, it's like, I just kind of want to see the positivity of the world around me. And I wonder just what that is that allows those negative-minded people to, formerly negative-minded people to really make that leap almost, because it is a leap.
It's a hard leap too. Where, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is you take a moment and you look at the space in general, and you're like, am I adding or am I pulling away from the space? Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. I had like it happened very like specifically like last year. there were some things that happened in the life of the show and the life of me personally that I was just like, I want energy that is good around me. Like I need people, I need projects, I need things to be in a better and more positive space that will then let and help to propel me in directions that I want. And it feels like if I'm adding to those spaces by just being continuously and pessimistic and snarky about everything, and then not trying to at least try to give people, one, the benefit of the doubt, and two, give myself the ability to be my fullest self. Like you can't do that and expect to live healthily and to feel like you're in a good place mentally when you're in this deluge of just massive amounts of pessimism and negativity that happens online. Like how can you help to contribute and flip that in the small circles of influence that you have? So that's been a huge part of my ethos, and kind of going forward has been like, how can I help to flip situations and give people perspective based on my own prism that, again, isn't what everyone's prism is, but it is mine, that will hopefully make people feel like they're in a better spot, or at least that they can see things in a different way that isn't constantly just in a negative and not great place. So that as a foundation has helped to do that, not only for the show, but for myself. And I feel like that has been really good to be able to kind of think about that and put those things in perspective.
I think that's the thing a lot of people don't take into account quite a bit of the time is you're asked, or I'm asked, how do you be positive in this space, because the gaming industry is not exactly known for being a very positive or healthy space. I'm getting an echo from somewhere.
It's me. Give me a second.
Justin breaking everything. Yeah, you're
my headset died. All right.
Yeah. No, so I mean, but we're in an industry that's not known for its positivity. It's not known for those kind of things. So people ask, like, how do you bring that positivity? How do you change that around? And one of the answers is look at who you're surrounded by. Look who's in your circle. Because, and not saying, just because somebody is negative or having a rough time or whatever to just drop them off the earth, out of your life because of that. But still, look who's your echo gallery. Look who your opinions you're hearing all the time. Look at all the stuff that you're listening to, and that helps you shape what you're putting out into the world.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, and I know people hate on Gary Vaynerchuk. I know people hate that cat a lot in terms of like his oversimplification of and I think that's the thing is like, but I'll honestly say, like, I don't listen to his stuff on a consistent basis. I will pop in and out because it'll come in and out of my feed.
Sure.
But there were parts of some of the things that he was sharing that definitely moved me in the direction of the show in a different direction, because I was like, look, I have a finite amount of energy, a finite amount of time, a finite amount of that energy, that positive energy that I can push out into the world. Plus that compounded with my introvert parts of me. And I'm like, I have to do like a shotgun blast of what I can to put good into the world, because if I don't, like, what am I doing here? I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. And as a personal foundational thing for me, my own little like motto for myself to get myself motivated in the day is like, if I'm not trying to push anything forward or do something dope, then it's a waste of time. Like I'm literally wasting time with the energy that I have. And that doesn't feel like a thing that I want to be doing. So it's like being able to flip those negative aspects takes work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of introspection to kind of think about like, where am I adding to spaces in a negative way, and how can I remove either myself or remove my the thing that I would have said 5 years ago in comparison to what I will say now is very, very different. I used to be on every thread on Twitter and be like, yo, this is popping off and this thing was said and you should be talking about this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, as a person who's been an advocate for diversity and inclusion and having people have a place to have more of a say, I've learned in spades that sometimes the best thing you can do is not say a thing and just listen.
It's amazing. That's one of the hardest lessons for people to understand. It's something we see, I think, retweeted on Twitter all the time. At least once a month, somebody will be like, hey, just so you know, you don't have to comment on everything. If you don't know something about a topic, shut up.
Yep.
And it's absolutely amazing how it's one of those simple, like, it's one of those simple things that until it's spelled out for you, you're just like, oh, okay. Because that was me also early days of social media and stuff like that, where I was a quiet person. I didn't necessarily respond to everything, but I would always see stuff pop up, and I would sit there trying to come up with my take, come up with my thing, come up with my thoughts on it. And I'm like, I'm literally sitting here for 20 minutes to come up with how I'm going to respond to X dumb thing or sad thing or whatever. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? If I don't have a thought immediately, then I don't have a thought, period.
Yeah, and you had to ask yourself after you write that, it's like, does this really contribute? Is this just adding what everybody else had? And, like, well, it's a self-realization. It's like the first step.
Yep. And we live in a space now where it's just like everyone wants to be first as opposed to being right or thoughtful.
The internet.
And that's the thing. It's like if you're first, it is literally like every YouTube section. It's like, remember there used to be like a new video would go up and someone would just write first in the first comment. I mean, it's literally that.
I still watch some Rooster Teeth content here and there are still people in the Rooster Teeth like comments that that usually the second comment says first every single time, and it's like, and I'm just like, what? How is this still a cultural thing? But I mean, that's literally how. I mean, that's kind of how human mindset is in general. It's just that basis of if you're not first, you're last. It's a lot of us heard growing up, and it certainly was a popular take. 50, 100 years ago, our parents and our grandparents' generation, that was always the popular mindset. But
and Ricky Bobby.
And Ricky Bobby.
And Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, but it's like
known philosopher Ricky Bobby.
Absolutely. But no, I mean, that's that mindset that a lot of us were taught by our parents and grandparents, and it's something that I'm very happy to see is not being taught so much to, my kids' generation and stuff like that, because it's not a healthy mindset. Because here's the fun thing. When you're first, you're the only one. Let's just say you're not literally shouting the word first out. You're commenting. You're actually making a commentary on something. Okay. Your commentary is based solely on the article that you hopefully read. Again, you hopefully read the articles. It's hopefully that. So I'm just going with the most positive mindset on it. You commented something thoughtful, but here's the thing. If you were first and you just rushed your thought out and you're not applying anything else and you're not seeing the rest of the comments coming through, then you're missing out on the conversation. Cause now you just essentially just got on your rooftop, shouted some shit at the street, and then, went back to bed. Versus if you're actually taking the time to read the thoughts, and it's fine if you happen to be first, but come back, read the thoughts, have a conversation, build the dialogue, learn something. Cause my whole thing is, it's not if you're first, you're last. If you're not learning something, you might be last.
Yeah. There's so many times where you can just take a step back. And wait, like my rule currently is like wait 10 minutes. Like you see a thing pop off and you wait 10 minutes. Like there are and again, like one of the things I've found in the past, at least 2 years, especially because I think like in the last 2 years is when a lot of the stuff for me and for Spawn to Me has kind of gotten a little bit more out front and gotten bigger, has been just being able to take that minute to kind of step back and not pull a hot take out. Because it takes so much more time to backpedal and to figure out how to restate a thing that you might have botched because you wanted to be out there first, or to have to go back. And it's like it winds up being such a waste of time because you just wanted to be out there with the hottest take first, that it usually doesn't behoove you. Like only time it really does a thing is like when someone has really botched something and really gotten it wrong. And then most people can be like, yeah, you based upon your history of tweets or history of social media presence, we know where you stand about this thing. But like that combined with so many versions of people just not wanting to have nuanced conversations, like it takes so much effort to have to figure that stuff out and fix it as opposed to just waiting.
It's amazing. Like the whole idea of backpedaling, whether, a half step or a full step, or, actually trying to just essentially it's the whole idea of, what's the old metaphor? It's just, you're trying to put all the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube. It's just that that ain't happening. Yep. It's like once the comments are out in the void, once you've said it, it's been said. And if you were operating without proper information, or again, you just jumped and you read a headline and you didn't go any further deep dive, then you're just sitting there and you've fucked up. And maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't care. You really are here entirely for the hot take, but that's not going to get you very far. That's not going to get you anywhere, really.
Agreed.
So let's talk other things. So how long have you been doing Spawn on Me? That's one thing we didn't talk about in the intro. How many years has it been now?
We'll be hitting 6 in January. So around 2013. I can't count. So 2013, 2014, about that.
Yeah, but that if you're hitting 6 years, and it'll be 2013. Awesome.
I can count. Yay.
I do math good now. Yay.
Yay. Math good. Yay.
It's a Sunday afternoon after a very long week. And
no doubt.
You came to us after another show. So it's like, you know what? It's unimportant. So you've been doing this for 6 years. I'm going to ask the most hated question for most people. I'm always curious of response. Where do you see Spawn on Me building to?
I hate this question. I will not answer it. No.
I like asking the question because it actually helps me sort out where the hell I see my thing go. It's a very selfish question.
So we're asking it. We're like, you first.
Yeah, it's a multi-layered answer. If you will give me the space to go through it a little bit.
Yeah, please.
There's a couple of things that I want Spawn on Me to do. One, of course, I want to grow our listenership and our viewership into IGN type strata. You know what I mean? Like, I want us to be a place where people come to conversations that they've never had before and have viewpoints on that space where I'm able to build out what we're doing now into something where I can employ people. Like, I'd love to be able to do a version of what Kind of Funny is doing or Rooster Teeth has done, but it be all POC centered and focused, right? Where it's like, the thing I love about the space is, and especially what we do and contribute to, is I really do believe, and I believe this in my heart, is that the gaming space right now is boring in some ways because it just doesn't have as many voices that it possibly could be. And I feel like Black culture, brown culture, POC culture is for all the versions of that we see, and the prisms in which the folks who inhabit those bodies look like and are living through, gives a very, very different version of gaming coverage and content that we don't see right now. So I would love to be able to do here's my checklist. I want to do a POC version of the Game Awards. I want to do, I want to have a Tyler Perry-esque studio that does stuff that is gaming centered, that is POC driven. I want to further build out Spawn for Good so that we are just as big as St. Jude's stuff that they've been doing with the things that they do over there. That centers on not just, sick children or diseases or any of that stuff, but like also digs into social justice issues that people don't spend time, effort, or charity events towards. I want to be on front of camera. I want to do stuff that other people are doing. It's a lot of layers to what I want Spawn on Me to be as the foundation for it, but I want it to be something where, again, we as a show or me as a show, you're seeing something that is not like what you've had in the space so far. Because there's just so many avenues and so many directions that gaming content can go in. But we see this very narrow version of what it's been because we're so used to that being the case. So it sounds, cliche, but I want to break some molds. I want to do some new fun stuff that we haven't seen before that is around POC folks and around, hip hop culture and around the things that I grew up with and all those bits, because there's so many untapped areas that we haven't even gone through yet.
Some minor stuff, nothing really that major or difficult.
Nothing too nuts.
I mean, that's a great answer, though. I mean, yeah, it's multi-layered. You're building off one thing after the next kind of thing. But I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, Nathan saying in chat, I love all these ideas, and I got to agree with that because it's just there's one of those things where there's no downside culturally in any way, shape, or form to what you want to do. And I sincerely wish you the best of luck, because I think most of us who have some kind of podcast network and been doing this a while, we dream of having the kind of funny thing, but that's really just at a very basic idea of company. Let me get paid to do this, but this is your idea is how do I put this? It's honestly more important. Because I run a company with a bunch of white dudes who we already exist heavily in the fucking space. And as you mentioned earlier, the gaming space is kind of a boring place right now because it's a lot of the same voices with the same opinions shouting the same shit, which was a problem with Constantly Calibrating for a long time. We realized we were just saying the exact same stuff every other podcast with every other dude was saying. And the importance of what you're doing and what you want to be doing is to get more diverse voices out there, get more people going, get that interest built, and then also that helps shape that has the potential to shape even the people like who do have some of the same voice kind of mentality to actually explore outside the thing. Because if you have more voices shouting more new ideas and different opinions, it makes a lot of the people who've just been regurgitating the same stuff year in and year out go, oh, how do I keep up? And they actually explore their values and their ideas.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, that's a great point. I feel like one of the things that we see, and mind you, like the foundations of what Spawn on Me as a podcast has come from is totally riffing off of many, many, many white podcasts.
Sure.
Right? Because those are all the shows that we grew up on. Those are the ones that I grew up on. I'm a huge Weekend Confirmed fan. I was like a huge One Up Show fan. I'm still a huge Giant Bomb fan. Like, I love those cats. I still geek out when I get to see them and talk to them in real ways. But it is when you see the value of your voice in a space, and you see the value, or you see the lack of opportunities and conversations happening, you're like, how can I fit into this space and do the same things that they're doing, but either better or from my prism? And once that conversation then gets kind of laid out, you're like, oh wow, there is absolutely a space for me here, and there's absolutely a space for the voices of the folks who didn't think they had one. And how can we lift that up, and how can we showcase that stuff in good ways? So yeah, like the goals I have are lofty. They're it's going to take time, effort, and money, and I'm on the lower end of time when it comes to it, getting into the game as late as I did. But it is one of those things that, you need good folks who understand the realism and the ideas and opportunities behind what a project like that can make. And you need good allies in the space who understand that, one, if they take a step to the side, that they're not taking a step backwards. And that means a lot. So it's like, folks like Greg, folks like Andrew Renee, folks like, Adam Sussler, like a lot of those folks who helped us out early on, who believed in what we do and understood the value of what we do, are helping us in various ways by giving us a space to go on Kind of Funny, or giving us a space to come on our podcast and do that kind of work and use the voices and platforms that they've built to be like, these people are legit and the conversations they're having are legit, and you should be using your time and effort and money, more money, please, to be able to
always more money,
to help them kind of build the thing that they totally believe is being a thing that's worth being in the space. So it means a lot to have folks rock with that. And like you said, like a show that has a bunch of white dudes on it at this point, they have an audience, but that audience is so saturated that I feel bad for newer podcasts who are coming up who have that kind of roster, because you have to fight through every other show that looks and sounds exactly like you with the same kinds of conversations. So it's like, it must be infinitely harder for you to be able to do that work.
Well, I mean, literally, I can only just assume people pull up our YouTube channel and, like, they've heard about Constantly Calibrating in passing, that these guys are passionate. They've got good ideas. Hey, I've heard them, Greg Miller talk about them. I've heard Kahlief Adams talk about them. The positive things. They open up the channel and they just see Justin and my faces. They might not give us a second chance and that's fine, because there's other options and there's plenty of other voices. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing, but again, like, no matter, everyone needs a voice, and I just want you to succeed with your goals, because again, like, it was through, stuff you were posting, I'm trying to think, a friend Tanya DePass, a bunch of other people started posting and getting, well, she retweeted into my thread where I started actually like looking at the industry with a completely and utterly different lens than I previously had. Because you don't realize the world you're kind of living in sometimes until somebody just slaps you across the face and says, this is the world you're living in. And it marks who you are as a person by how you react to that. When somebody points out to you, you know, you're coming from a place of privilege, and you're in this kind of environment, you know, if you remark with, no, I'm not, fuck you, versus, no, I'm not, how dare you, the white genocide or some crazy shit like that. You know, it's like, you start shouting that kind of shit out at the top of your lungs.
I scream that often.
Yeah, exactly.
Conversations, like when racial conversations come out, I'm like, what about white genocide?
That seems like a great thing on that yet. Somebody's gonna clip this out. We're gonna end up on the quartering or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
No, he's still busy with John. Sorry, John.
Love you, John.
No, but love you all by heart. I feel so bad about that last week. What happened to him? But no, but like, it's how you remark. If you're remarking, oh no, I'm now being, because of me, I'm not coming from a place of privilege, and because you're claiming that I'm now yada yada yada, kind of I'm the new minority or some shit like that. Versus if you remark and you just look at the environment and you're like, huh, there may be something to this. Yeah. And that's not saying just because you're in that place that you have to figure out how suddenly you have to now become an activist and do all these things, and go. But the awareness is what matters. The awareness of what your platform could be, at the very least, is a starting point.
It seems like this has to happen, like in every industry, and like, of course, the video game industry is technically young, but
comparatively.
Everybody gets comfortable. This is how the ways things are until someone has to point out to them, like, yo, this is not right. Have you sat around and looked at this?
Mm-hmm. I mean, my favorite part about my favorite piece of commentary that has popped up in the past 10 years about the video game industry and within the video game industry, coming from the consumer side of it, has been the one that talks about, get your politics out of my games. Like, it is a thing that makes me laugh so hard, because when I think about what we do at Spawn on Me, it's in direct opposition to that particular phrasing, right? And so that particular saying, where I believe and understand that everything is political. Everything that you've ever talked about has been connected to some political faction, or it connects to some political ideology, or the way that it makes somebody feel or live or be on the planet that we live on, in the BioShock universe that we live in currently, right? It's like, we understand that in that lighthouse, everything is about politics. And we understand that when you look at the prism from that way, from a realistic way, that then you can make content that speaks to that thing, if you're doing it in a way that seems reasonable. Like, of course, there are people who have gaming takes that are totally on the different opposite end of what I believe politically. But I also understand that those folks, one, have a right to say what those things are, especially if they are not necessarily progressive. But as long as you're not speaking about or speaking towards hateful things, then I feel like you have the ability to rock, and then people can, debate whatever the thing is that you're talking about. To think that those things don't touch the people who are playing video games, which is art, which are political statements in and of themselves, just feels really disingenuous and silly. So it's like, that being a foundational thing has propelled me, and I'm way more political than people really know. They don't even see the conversations that I have with people offline, and I don't talk about on Twitter or on the show, because if I did, I'm definitely sure the quartering would come after me. But it's like, I don't even say half the stuff that I actually believe when it comes to some of the stuff. But it's like that foundational part is like, again, speaks to what kind of platform do you want to have, and also what kind of conversations you want to have with the people that you want to have them with. So it broadens out those things in bigger ways and more important ways. And then that's how you get things done when it comes to the video game industry, the political sphere, all those things combined.
I look at the political side of things like that. I'm the same as you with that, the statement, I hate that there's politics in my games or in my movies and stuff like that. And then like studios responding back with, don't worry, our game about counterintelligence in the modern world has no politics to it, kind of thing. And it's like, what? Those kind of things like baffle my brain. But I was one of the schmucks who, in the early days of this very podcast, I'd say somewhere in the episode 30 to 100 range, we had a thing where my former co-host at the time, Brad, and we would have these conversations where we're not going to touch this topic because it's too political or it's too religious or it's something like that. We're not going to be one of those shows because in our minds, our contemporaries who we were building stuff based on weren't touching it. And it's really funny because the reason I always say that I actually started noticing politics and understanding politics is a certain former Kinda Funny co-founder who is now absolutely, someone who I would not listen to anymore, anything, but it's actually because of stuff he said once upon a time that I now look at politics. I actually pay attention and realize, actually the world is political because anytime somebody makes a comment, my father-in-law made like that generic statement not that long ago. When did everything have to become so political? And I couldn't control myself. I'm sitting on the couch, and my wife Charnel is looking at me like, don't say it. No, don't say anything. And I'm just like, probably that around the time fire was invented and, Joe Caveman caved in his friend's head to get the fucking fire from him. Yeah. It's like, that's literally politics. That right there, that is politics, that very basic action, because
it's so funny. It's so funny that you say that because we've had that gentleman on the show. We've had him on Spawn on Me.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say that he was a person that necessarily sparked my political interest in when it came to the crossover between games and politics.
Yep.
But he was kind of the reason I watched Kinda Funny stuff early on was because he was that nice contrast between the kind of happy and chipper versions of Greg, who and I will fully admit this, at first I thought was like kind of a caricature of who Greg is, but now I'm like getting to know him. I'm like, no, he really is like a happy, fun-loving guy who wants to kind of figure his way through that stuff. And it's been really interesting, honestly, to see now, and I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit about this, that they have now moved into digging into those stories and digging into those cultural things and talking about that stuff in real ways. I'm going to pat Andrea Renee on the back for that too, because I'm sure she's definitely added to that as well.
I've no doubt she helped there.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like, again, it's like we see this movement, right? It's inching forward where we see people and content creators who didn't necessarily dig into stuff like that, absolutely taking the time to do that, to the detriment of, losing people as fans and losing people as people who listen to their show and all that stuff. But I feel like in the grand scheme, it's made their content better. It's made the conversations that they are able to broach better. It's built a place for them to be able to bring in people who know more than they may know. And I feel like all of those things have made the space, made the content, and made the industry better because they have so many eyes on them. Right. So it's like when you have lots of eyes on you, you have an opportunity to do multiple things. You have the opportunity to get more people in front of your content, but you also have the ability to formulate ideas for folks who may not have those ideas already. And that is, to me, is the most important point. Bringing a conversation to people who might not understand a thing. And that's one of the things that luckily we've been able to do for many of our white counterparts who listen to our show. When I think about the kind of breakdown of the demographics of people who listen to the show, we have a large white audience where a lot of folks who listen to our shows are white. And I get messages all the time of being like, hey, I didn't know about that thing, or I didn't look at it this way, or I didn't, understand the reasons why you may be wary of this particular issue as opposed to something else. And I'm like, yeah, fam. Like, this is the thing I'm thinking about. This is like when I put the controller down and when I put my headphones down and stop recording, these are the things that I'm dealing with in real life that then influence how I look at the games that I play and why I don't like Coltrane and Gears of War and why I don't like such and such character in this game, because they fit the things that I've seen in my actual life that don't necessarily match what I expect. So it's been a good ability to be able to see other folks jump into the pool with us. And I will fully take all that and say I helped to move that forward in some small way. So, like, hell yeah. Like, why not? Take that, right?
I mean, take accomplishments. You know, if you've accomplished something and you've helped, shape people's minds or made them understand better the world they live in, I mean, that's not a small feat. So, no, like, that's one thing I wholly support be cocky about.
That was my Kojima moment. That was
that is your Kojima. God. I know we talked
like
about
straight in game.
Bringing it up. I just find it really funny. Hilarious.
It helps that like literally right before this podcast, right before we were getting ready, he made another comment about the work that he's done, about my thing, and like it's just you're just sitting there and you're like, you do understand that you didn't I really sometimes wonder if he actually understands he didn't single-handedly birth this game.
I mean, right now he is. If you're anyone who is of age and remembers making the band the first season, Kojima right now is Dylon. He is totally Dylon. Okay. He is like, yo, I am 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Dylon, Kojima. He is definitely doing his Dylon movement right now.
He's all about Kojima, which is, I mean, Kojima itself is literally a brand. I get it, and he's been called, the rockstar developer kind of thing of the industry, and I totally get this whole thing, but.
And I love him. I love his work. I love his games. I am a Kojima stan in a lot of ways, but it is like, man, like, fam, just back up off the keyboard for like 30 minutes. Like, just chill.
Take a breather. But I mean, he's literally proof of, I'm assuming there is no PR rep who is, he's feeding his thoughts to. It's just like, I think everyone has just accepted the fact that just like Kojima, and you know what? People are going to probably buy it because either it has his name on it or it's so absolutely batshit crazy the stuff he's saying that whatever. And I think a lot of the people who work for a studio are like, yeah, we might be not get the same name brand recognition, but also we're working with a game with this talented person, this well-reputed person. That's going to look good on our resumes. And also people are going to be buying this game because his name's on it. So, the guy may have his head up his own ass, as Nathan said.
Stupid.
But speaking of his name, like I think I might have to stream Death Stranding just to have a Kojima counter. Like, how many times is this name going to pop up in this game? Like it did Metal Gear Solid 5.
No, you just need just have your Stream Deck or some equivalent macro button on your keyboard and just hit that button and it just pumps the counter up every single time. And then also you should have this is what you do. You have one button, Justin, that has the in-game Kojima counter, but then you have the other one that's the Justin Glorious counter. So you actually keep track of how many times the game has referenced him and how many times you've said the name.
Ooh.
And see what the numbers fall out to. Sorry, this is my dumb idea of the podcast. There's always.
If we really want to destroy ourselves, we just have a Death Stranding drinking game. Every time you see Kojima, take a drink.
Oh my god.
See, that thing is, you could go, depending on how the game is structured, you could go a very long time without taking a drink, or you could take 5 shots back to back very quickly. That could really go multiple ways. But yeah, no, that's some ideas there. Sorry, it was like we went on a complete tangent on a side thing, which is
that was
like,
my fault. I derailed.
No, please. Constantly Calibrating is based on derailing. There's a reason why, depending on
all comes from a place of Kojima love.
Yes,
it's true.
Potentially,
we want to see Kojima do better.
Holy shit! No, but it's like derailing is. I mean, like literally, Constantly Calibrating is based on the idea of I make a document either a week before a guest is on or while I'm writing the social media post. And there's no in between. So we either have a really well thought out thing, and either way, it's never gonna hit the marks because I always think a good interview host is someone who just lets the train roll and just sees where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't even know where I was gonna I've completely lost the thread there for a second. So let's talk. Actually, let's go back and Spawn. I mean, let's talk guests and people you've had on the show and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm gonna ask you. I'm stealing questions you asked me because I like them a lot.
Absolutely.
So who would you say were a couple of your favorite people that you've had as guests on the show?
Evan Narcissus.
Okay.
When he was still doing games writing, absolutely one of my favorites. I think he was one of our most. I think his episode, which I think is like episode 50, was like the moment that made us understand that we had something really good going.
Okay.
Like, so the TLDR premise of that episode was he was writing about black hair and how video games weren't getting it right. And it was literally right off of the article that he had written, and it was a very heartfelt piece that he had done, totally from the heart, and like talking about a lot of things that irked him in the industry, and why the importance of getting that thing right is so necessary. And we got him when he was like really, really emotional. And he was really in his feelings about, the piece and how people were going to come to it and some of the feedback that he had gotten from it. And we just let him run. Like, he just ran for the hour and whatever, how long that episode was. And we sat after it and all kind of got in our little chat room afterwards, and we were like, oh shit, that happened. Like, we had that emotional moment with a guest that we didn't expect to happen, and it resonated, and people felt a thing that they hadn't felt before. So that was a moment that I will, no matter how Spawn and Me winds up, whenever it finishes up or whenever it sunsets, that I will keep in my heart always, because it feels like all the things that we talked about and planned and thought about a show could be kind of came to fruition in that moment. Austin Walker always drops bombs whenever he comes through. Austin Walker is like, it's one of the things I'm sad about leaving New York about, is that when Austin moved to New York, I wasn't there, to still be in that city and vibe with him, because I feel like there's so many cool things that we could have done together. But I love him with like the utmost and have the most respect for that cat. I remember us having a quick conversation right before he was about to launch Waypoint, or be in charge of Waypoint. And I was just so overjoyed for him that he was going to have a thing and be able to be his full self within it. As much as you can be under Vice, right? As an entity. And seeing his growth throughout the space and seeing his rise through Giant Bomb and through Waypoint and Vice Games now has been just like a thing that I just love, seeing somebody so smart getting to rock and do stuff like that. Of course, Adam Sessler, every time he's on the show, like, we wrote down early on in our shows of like our guest list that we wanted and our wish list. And Sessler, of course, was like a huge fan of his stuff at X-Play. And he, again, it's like one of the things that I appreciate about he and Austin is that the video game industry is one where they don't want you to be smart. They want you to be smart, but not out front. Like, you can't be smart on camera. You can't be smart in your writing.
Well, because it's a kid's medium. I mean, that's literally what the mentality of the mainstream mindset is. It's a kid medium, so you can't be too smart because the kids won't like it, but that's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's switched in the past 5 years, like 5 to 7 years. That's changed a lot, and that's due to Adam and Austin and other folks like them.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's like, people who decided that they were like, I'm not going to dumb down my language for you. I'm not going to switch up the way I speak or the way I write for you to be able to understand what I have. Pick up a damn dictionary and a thesaurus and figure it out. And I love the fact that they were able to do that stuff. Robin Hunicke, who I adore and love, like her blessing us with her presence on the show, as a huge fan. Like she's literally the reason why I am doing 90% of the stuff that I've been able to do in this industry. I remember rolling up on her at a GDC, like my first GDC, and them doing this experimental arcade, and she was helping to curate it. And I was a huge fan of Journey, still am, and rolled over to her very sheepishly and was like, "Excuse me, Miss Hunicke, my name is Kahlief Adams, and I do a podcast. I would love to maybe one day have you on our show." And now she's like a really like tight friend, which is nuts for me to say out loud.
Those are always the craziest guests, when you're just like, when you go to the phrase, I'm friends with X, and you're like, I am?
Yeah. Yeah. Like somebody hit me up one day and was like, oh my God, you know Adam Sessler? I was like, yeah. I was like, he's like, man, one day I just want to be able to like talk to that dude. I was like, I can text him for you. And he was like, what? And he was like, you can text him. He's like, you have his number? I was like, yeah, I got his number. I text him for you. Like, see what the deal is. And he like freaked out and he like bugged out. And it's like me, myself, when I look at that and replay what I just said in my head as a person who was sitting in front of my TV watching he and Morgan Webb do the stuff that I wanted to do, to know that he rocks with us and, you know, I can kibitz with him about random shit, is something that's totally just weird for me anyway. But it's like, we've had some really good guests that I'm really proud of. We've had some shows that I'm really proud of. Like we did our Mafia 3 show that had the writers from Mafia 3 on the show, and then we had like a roundtable discussion. We had our Black Academics show that was really dope. To have like PhDs rolling on our show to talk about video games and stuff like that. Like there's been so many moments that I feel like we've been able to, again, like do something different and hit conversations from a different angle that really make me proud.
I think that's phenomenal, man. I think that's a good legacy to have as well. The fact that you had so many options just shows the breadth of what you've kind of been doing. So that's great. I was just thinking like about the fact that, you know, you listed a bunch of people I want to eventually meet at some point, but like Adam Sessler was one of my big ones because he was one of my inspirations to start this. And when I still remember meeting him at E3 last year because, you know, the fun thing about E3 is if you wander around back and forth from the JW to the venue back and forth enough, you'll probably meet everyone you could possibly imagine in the world.
Yep.
And I walked by him, and this was actually when he was, I think, dealing with a leg issue or a hip issue or something like that. Yep. And I went to talk to him, and he was just so much friendlier than I was expecting that it actually completely threw me off my game, and was probably one of the single worst intros I've ever made to myself ever. So I always think about that now, and I'm like, please don't remember this. If I ever bump into him again, let me start fresh again, because he was just because he looked like a curmudgeonly old man with a cane because he was in pain, you know. Yeah. He was clearly in pain, and I'm just like, and he's like, yeah, hey, what's up? Oh, you like my? Oh, yeah, that's great. What'd you like about X-Play and stuff like that? He starts asking me questions. I'm like, yep. I don't have answers for any of this. I wasn't expecting
think this would ever happen. What am I supposed to do?
I thought I would just say some nice things about you and you say, cool, nice meeting you, and then I would just go in the opposite direction. You actually trying to converse with me. I need an adult. Oh shit, I am one.
Yeah. I've totally been that. I've totally had that moment many times over the past 6 years. It's been really bugged out.
It's amazing. It's still amazing. Even with confidence, even with like, you know, talking to people you've respected for a long time, how it still crops up every now and again. And you're just like, you think you know exactly how to handle people, how to talk to people. And then just one person, one situation in that instance. And you're like, all right, I'm literally that person who just started this in this industry all over again, and how to talk people good.
Yeah. I've had that on so many occasions. I think the first time I really had that of late was talking to Phil Spencer. Like
that would do it for me.
Yeah, like talking to Phil Spencer. And it's interesting now because like I've spoken to Phil in a couple of different times, and I don't feel nervous talking to him. Mm-hmm. But I definitely do feel like if I say the wrong thing, he will end my career.
I'm not nervous, but I'm dead.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you have just told everyone not to fuck with me or spawn on me ever again, and I have just botched that. So it's like, as a human being, I don't have the whole like, I'm nervous to talk to you thing anymore. Like again, like introversion just makes you nervous to talk to people, and you just don't know if you're kind of bothering people. I don't feel that way anymore, but I do feel like the pressure of getting those conversations right while also pitching yourself, while also not kind of fanboying over people, right? Well, so it's like that interesting kind of like mix of emotions that you have to play yourself out through to kind of make sure you're not doing that stuff in like the wrong way. Right.
Well, and also pitching yourself while not pitching yourself is also the key thing about that, because a lot of people will go into the situations and they'll even do most of it right, but they'll pitch themselves in such a strong way where it's like clear that you came over to me because you want me on your podcast or you want me to give you a job in the industry. And it's like, so you need to find a way to pitch yourself without being like, where it's like, yeah, I'm pitching myself in the way that we're both human beings having a conversation, and I also would like you to pitch yourself to me and have this and have a dialogue about where we're at in reality as it pertains to the chat. So it's like there's like 5 different facets of your personality and the other person's personality that you have to weigh constantly, which is why I was terrified of Andrea Renee for the longest time. So, that's always my go-to. Just be like, that's my Phil Spencer, where it's just like, you could end me if I say the wrong thing to you.
But you have the softest hands, according to Andrea Renee.
She's. It's still. One of these days we'll have to ask her if she remembers that conversation.
That is amazing.
I've told this story on way too many fucking podcasts. I think I very drunkenly told it on the last episode. But no, the short version is Brittany Brombisher is the reason I didn't quit the industry a long time ago. And she said some nice things to me. I read something nice from her. Maybe in the last episode or the episode before, but she's the one who kept me kind of going and stuff. And I finally got to meet her in person a few PAX Wests ago. I went over to her and like she's like, "Oh, Josh," we like had like a 8-second conversation. All of a sudden, Andrea Renee just leans over and it's like, "Hi, you're not going to introduce yourself to me?" And I'm just like, I actually wasn't, because you scared the shit out of me. But I'm like, "Hi, Andrea. I'm Josh Silverman. I do this." And she's like, "You have the softest hands of anyone. You should not have hands this soft." And I'm just like, and then that literally ended the whole conversation right there. I'm just like, I had no conscience. I'm like, thank you. Pleasure meeting you, Britt. Pleasure meeting you in person finally. And I got up and walked away. And
I adore them. Like that whole crew. Like I remember, like I met Andrea at PlayStation Experience the first year that they had it. And I was so nervous to go roll up on her and say hello. I still have that picture on my phone somewhere. But I was amazingly nervous. I'm sure she heard this. She'd be like, "Get the heck out of here." But I was like mad nervous to go roll up over it on Andrea, because I was just like, "Yo, like I've seen your work. You're everywhere. I've been a fan of your stuff for so long. Like, how am I ever going to just be like, hi?" And she was really kind, and I was like, "Can we take a picture?" She was like, "Totally, let's take a picture." And she was like amazingly sweet. Mm-hmm. And now, like, I remember just like just getting a chance to hang with her and seeing her at events now, and just like rolling up and being like, "Ka," I'm like, "Yo, what's up? How you doing?" Like, she'll give me a hug and stuff. It's very, very surreal when you get to that point where people are just people and they're not the people that you know them to be. Mm-hmm. And that part just still to this day bugs me out. Well, a quick funny story with Andrea was at E3, I think maybe 2 years ago. We hadn't known each other super, super well at that point, but well enough that we were like cool. We had been in enough circles and enough people. We had done the introductions. We'd hung out a couple of times. She was in the middle of running from one side of E3 all the way to the other side of E3 to go do some stuff at Facebook Gaming. And she like didn't have her shoes. So she had like her shoes and she had like her heels in one hand and her flats in the other.
Okay.
And I was like, she was like fumbling through her bag and stuff. And I was like, "Can I like hold your shoes for you while you need to like dig through your bag?" She's like, "Yeah, could you do that really quick?" So I like held her shoes and like ran across E3 with her shoes in my hand. So she was like running to another event to go do the thing. And I'm like, it looks like I'm a bodyguard carrying her shoes, walking across E3. And it was funny as hell, but it's like, you know, she's a human being who's like needs to go run to her next appointment. Like, I'm not gonna not help you out and just be like, "You can go do that on your own." Like, nah, it's Andrea. She's dope. And she was really sweet about it. She was just like really kind and nice about that whole thing. It was just funny.
I'm sure doing podcast, that's amazing. I'm sure doing podcasts, as long as you have, people have asked you the questions, like, how do I get guests? How do I talk to people? How do I break into those circles? Those kind of things, right? Yep. And the thing at least I always say that question is, remember, they're people. But and talk to them like people and treat them like people. And it's amazing what you can get in life if you treat people like people, and don't treat them as these lofty like idols and things like that. Just talk to them. But when you're in those very human moments with, you know, people you once looked up to, the people who helped you out, and suddenly you're in these very, you know, these experiences, and it's like, then it finally clicks in your head what you like, the same stuff you've been saying all along, and it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I get this.
Yeah, like it pulls away some of the sheen, which you need as a person who's in the industry. And it's one of the reasons why I tell people, and I wish that this was a thing, but also now looking at the way that that many gaming communities are, I'm kind of taking this thought back. I'm reneging on this whole concept, but it's like one of my favorite conferences is GDC, because you get to see everyone with their hair down. You get to see everyone with their guards down. And everyone's kind of just like being their fullest selves. Like PAX and E3 are very different because they're very business oriented.
Yep.
And PAX is a very fan oriented show. But getting the chance to see like random things that you would never expect to see humanizes people in a way that I wish everyone could see. And it's unfortunate that they can't. So like a random thing was, I'm walking down the street late at night, super late at night after E3. Everything is shut down. Everyone's left the JW hotel. I'm rolling over to this one spot that's like this 24-hour diner that everybody kind of goes to. And I see this figure stumbling down the street. And I'm like, who the hell is this? Like in the middle of the street, like could get hit by a car on the street. And I'm like, who is this person just doing this wobble? And I'm like, oh shit, that's Shuhei Yoshida. Yo, Shuhei is lit right now. This is dope. Like he is like lit, like going back to his hotel. He's like had a good night, like chilling. You know, I have done the wobble walk after having too many drinks, and I like had that moment, and I was like, oh shit, Shuhei Yoshida is walking down the street, head honcho at Sony, drunk off his butt, and he's just going back to his hotel. Like, that's a dope thing to see, because then again, removes that layer of just like, you are all different than we are. Like you are special in some way. Like when you learn that people aren't special, it makes it very different. And that's a cool thing. It's not a bad thing. It's like a very cool thing to be like, oh, you go home to human beings who love you. You go home to people that have arguments. You go home and you have to deal with UPS not putting your package on your doorstep the way you were supposed to. Like you deal with the stuff that I deal with in your regular day life, but you also have this extra cool thing that you do as your job that I aspire to do. So it grounds people in a really cool way, which I think a lot of people in the non-gaming industry don't get a chance to see. And I think if they did, then they would be less vitriolic, and they would be less angsty, and they would be less mad at people for doing the stuff that they do. So yeah, there's some good moments that I have. That's just one of the ones that I have in my brain that I think of constantly when I think of how cool the industry can be if you just let people rock.
Well, I mean, it's ultimately a very freeing thing, and I think it allows you to really grow and better express yourself as well. So, let me give you a last question before we do the whole wrap up here. We talked about guests you've had. Who would you say are some of the dream guests, the people that you're just sitting still and you're like, when can I have these people on? How do I get these people on?
I have this one picture that I keep in my phone, and it reminds me very specifically of like, when we get here, then I would have felt like I have made it. Like the good thing about what I feel like we do on Spawn on Me is we don't have the numbers that show it. We don't have the recognition. We don't have the name recognition that a lot of shows have. But if I just took a list of the names of the people who have been on our podcast, there are very few shows that you can say as a small outlet has done what we were able to do.
Absolutely.
And I rock with that super hard. It does mean that we should be bigger, and we should be bigger than a lot of other things. But agreed. But I have this one picture, and I think it was from maybe E3 last year or the year before. And I'm chatting with Phil Spencer, Aaron Greenberg, and head of Sony. Why can't I think of his name right now? Why can't I think of his name? I can't think of his name right now. That's unreasonable that I can't think of his name.
I'm spacing as well.
Yeah, I don't know why that's the thing. I'm going to Google it. But I'm hanging out with all three of them. And I'm sitting there having this conversation with them. And we're all just chilling. And we're all just hanging out. And it's a good conversation about a lot of different things. And I'm like, I belong here in this space. Like, I belong here having these conversations with these folks. And I belong in this place where I should be able to talk to them in a way that we're having the same conversation now. Like, I feel like we've earned the right to be able to make those things happen. And if we can do that, then I'm like, we can do it. Like, why can't we be bigger than what we already are? You know what I mean? Like, those are folks that I constantly want to have on the show. I want to be bigger than where we are now. I would love to have the folks from Naughty Dog on our show. I feel like that would be a huge thing. I would love for us to be able to have, let me think, the head of the ESA to be on the show, because we had the head of the ESA who was a couple of years back on our show. I'd love to do some more of that. There's so many people who I think just have really interesting stories, and the fact that we don't necessarily have access yet is a thing that I always kind of like get a little bit upset about, because I'm like, we have the chops, like we have the pedigree. I feel like I ask really good questions. Sean Layden is the person I was thinking of.
Okay.
And I'm like, the fact that we haven't been able to do that work yet both annoys me, but also drives me to be able to continue to push.
Yep.
And I'm like, if we are able to get to that space, then like it'll be a huge feather in our cap to be able to say that we did that work. Because there are not a lot of people, especially brown folks, who've been able to do that work. So I'm like, if we can do it, that'll be a dope moment for us, and I can leave Spawn on Me feeling good about where we've landed. And Beyonce. So we got to get Beyonce too.
Yeah, sure.
Of course.
Again, I love the structure of your goals, that they're all reasonable but also lofty, but like, again, in a reasonable way. No, I think that's great. And I'm the person, again, I stand by the fact that I want to see you succeed more than almost anyone else in this industry. So I think you have great ideas, and I think it'll make all of us better if you succeed. So it's very selfish. But yeah, okay, so where can people find you and Spawn on Me and anything else you wish to promote? Feel free to talk about the TwitchCon stuff as well, because this will go out before that.
Yeah. So you can find me at Kajakins on Twitter. At Spawn on Me is the account for the show. We drop new shows every Tuesday, if I'm doing my job the right way. Every Tuesday on all podcast services. You can, if you're in the Portland area and you want to listen to us on the actual radio, who knew that was a thing? You can listen to us at xray.fm there. We are the first and only podcast in the Pacific Northwest run by people of color to have ever been on the radio. So that's a thing.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna take that because no one has disputed it yet. So, and also you can find us, of course, on YouTube, Instagram, and all those places. Patreon.com if you want to support us with your dollars. We need the help as much as you possibly can to get to do shows and to help pay some of the wonderful folks who have been working for us for free and been lending us their time and efforts and energy and talent. So we want to make sure that we're paying those folks next time we are able to work with them. And yeah, I'll be at TwitchCon this weekend coming up the 28th through the 28th through the 29th or 30th, something like that. Saturday, it's
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It's Thursday through Sunday, but I will only be there from Friday through Sunday.
So 27th through 29th.
27th through 29th. The wonderful folks from Twitch have made Spawn on Me an ambassador for Twitch for 2019, which is fantastic. I will be moderating not one, not two, but 5 panels on Saturday.
Wild man.
Wow. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing a live version of Spawn on Me, rocking with the folks from Gamertag Radio, Able Gamers, and Miss DJM, who's a wonderful streamer who you should definitely check out. And that's going to be it for the rest of 2019 for me, unless some other wonderful stuff comes up as an opportunity that I have said that I will not take, but I will probably take. Yeah, that's kind of it. There's a lot of stuff happening towards the end of this month, and I'm lucky to be able to do all that work, but I'm going to be real tired.
Nathan in chat saying hashtag let Ka rest.
Let Ka rest, yeah.
Isn't that
hashtag Ka does this to himself?
Yeah, you know. Well, that's the wonderful thing. You made a comment just there where you're like, and I said I'm not going to do anything else, but we'll see where the rest of the year takes me. And that's always the conversation with my wife where she's like, I thought you said you were done with events post PAX West. It's like, okay, but something else came up that either I forgot about or an opportunity popped up, and please.
really quick before we sign off, I remember 2 years ago, right after 2 years ago, right after like some random thing happened. I think it was the IGN thing. That was probably actually a little bit longer than that. I told myself that I would, for a year, and this was like a fight with my introversion of saying I will say yes to everything that comes my way.
Mm-hmm.
And saying yes to everything that came my way led to IGN, led to Kind of Funny, led to the GameSpot stuff that we did with Daniel Dwyer, led to a whole bunch of different things that have manifested itself. So if you're at home and you're listening to this stuff, I advise you to try it. If you can monetarily, do it. If you can with your energy and your mental energy and capacity, do it. Say yes for a year and see where it takes you. If you're a content creator, see what you can do in that space and see how far you can take a thing that you've been trying to take a thing. Because for me, it worked. And I think it's something that people should think about.
I think that's actually great advice. And I think, it's something that it's very difficult to do. I've done variations of that, which, last year maybe, which is how I ended up finally going to E3 and finally doing this and finally doing that. And it was less of the always say yes, and it was more of the stop saying no to myself about things. Instead of just saying yes to every opportunity that came my way, the opportunities weren't coming my way. So it was like, instead of saying to myself, I'm not going to email this person, or I'm not going to contact this guest, or I'm not going to apply for this, or what have you, it's just like, fuck it, just don't be a dick and reach out for everything. And it's, again, amazing what you can do with that mindset when you can just say no to your own fears.
Yep. Agreed.
So yeah, with that, God, this was a blast. Thank you so much, Kahlief, for coming on for this. As far as we go, thank you all for joining us this week. The Constantly Calibrating podcast is live usually every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on mixer.com/ConCalPod. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/ConstantlyCalibrating, Twitter at ConCalPod. I'm at Bear Punch. Justin's at Justin_Glorious. Check Instagram at Instagram.com/ConstantlyCalibrating, and come chat with us on Discord at Constantly Calibrating. That is so hard to say sometimes. At Discord at ConstantlyCalibrating.com/Discord. Also, please make sure to leave a review wherever you're able to. It does help get the show in front of more people. It's always helpful. And if you're subscribed in one place, go subscribe in another. Appreciate it a lot. Before the sign off, we have this Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. will be the 300th episode of the Constantly Calibrating podcast, featuring pretty much everyone who's ever hosted the show in some official capacity. So it'll be myself, Justin, Brad, Ryan, Brian, and Steven, my co-founder, who I've not done a podcast with since 2013.
Wow.
So, will it be good? Will it be crazy? We don't really know. But for anyone sticking around for the video end of the show, you will see the brand new intro for Constantly Calibrating that I made, as well as essentially serving as a promo for the show. And that's for the stream as well. That's how we're going to end things. So yeah, thank you all. And with that, we bid you a good sign off.